Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going on a really wholesome, kind of fascinating journey into the psychology of how children speak in front of others. If you've ever watched a kid freeze up, stumble, or just completely panic when asked to speak to a room, or let's be real, if you've felt that way yourself as an adult, you know exactly how hard it is. But today, we're going to completely reframe how we see this struggle. We'll be pulling from some amazing research to understand the real mechanics behind confidence, clarity, and growth. Okay, let's dive into this. Why does public speaking feel so terrifying for kids? We usually just assume they're shy, right? Or maybe underprepared. But the reality is way more complex, and honestly, it's incredibly validating for any child going through it. They're experiencing an intense emotional panic, but that is not a sign of weakness. It's actually a sign that their brain is doing exactly what it was designed to do. Think about it. Before a child ever says a full sentence in front of a room, their mind is already doing something absolutely crucial. It's trying to protect them. A child isn't just bad at speaking. Before they even open their mouths, their brain is in absolute overdrive, trying to keep them safe. It's perceiving all that sudden attention as a high-stakes threat. Because public speaking isn't just talking, It's being noticed, being judged, and desperately trying not to make a mistake. Literally, all at the exact same time. So, to make sure we really wrap our heads around this, we're going to break this whole complex emotional topic down into 4 super digestible steps. 1. Why speaking feels big. 2. The mechanics of speaking. 3. How confidence actually grows. And 4. Turning practice into identity. All right, step 1. Why speaking feels big. You see, getting up to speak in public carries a weight that is so much heavier than just an ordinary everyday conversation. And there's a very specific reason for that weight. Inside a child's brain, there's just this chaotic cognitive stacking happening. It's a massive mental overload. Suddenly, attention feels risky because, well, everyone's looking. Mistakes feel incredibly loud. Their memory gets super crowded as they try to remember words and voice and posture all at once. And then the body joins in, right? A faster heartbeat, maybe shaky hands. It's just a lot. Our source material uses this brilliant analogy that I love. It's like stepping onto a small stage right in the middle of a busy, crowded market. Now, obviously, the stage isn't actually dangerous, but the sudden focus of all those eyes shifting toward them, it makes it feel incredibly heavy. The second attention lands on the child, their brain basically goes on high alert. Which brings us to step 2, the mechanics of speaking. Once we understand that immense emotional weight, we have to shift our focus past the raw emotion. We need to deconstruct what speaking actually is, mechanically. Now, what's really interesting about this is how we break speaking down into these distinct layers. You've got the idea layer, language, delivery, and audience reading. This breakdown is absolutely crucial because as adults, we almost always blame the wrong layer. Like we might tell a kid to speak louder, which is targeting the delivery layer, when the real issue is that their idea layer is completely overloaded and they just don't know what to say yet. When we target the wrong layer, kids just feel totally misunderstood. When all those layers actually work together, speaking acts as a bridge between a child's private inner world and the outside world. But here is the key thing to remember. Kids aren't just transmitting raw data. They're trying to transfer themselves. They're taking their private, messy inner thoughts and exposing them to an outside audience. That is an incredibly vulnerable thing to do. Think of it like carrying water across a room in a shallow bowl. If you move too fast, it spills. If you're shaking from nerves, it spills. Grip it too tightly, it spills. The child already has the water, that's their idea, but the real challenge is just keeping that message stable while carrying it over to the listener. Or here's another way to picture it. Think of a chef running a small kitchen during a frantic dinner rush. The child is the chef, and their message is the meal. They aren't just doing one single thing. They're coordinating memory, voice, and meaning under immense pressure. If they forget to check the stove, the whole dish is ruined. And this brings us to a massive disconnect we call the inside-out gap. See, the child experiences the entire messy, chaotic process on the inside. Every racing thought, every tiny stumble. But the audience? We only hear the outside finished result. This explains exactly why kids judge their own wobbles so harshly. It's like they have their face pressed right up against a painting, seeing all the messy brushstrokes, while the audience is standing way back, just enjoying the beautiful picture. Okay, step 3, how confidence actually grows. If that's what speaking really is, how do we fix the fear? Well, we have to reframe confidence entirely. It is not a magical leap. And actually, scratch that, it's definitely not an inherited personality trait either. Confidence is simply accumulated evidence. Let's move to and see how this builds over time. The brain is way more comfortable with what it recognizes. That first exposure, that feels like high risk, pure threat. But through repeated exposure, it slowly becomes familiar. Then, with supported success, the brain logs it as safe. And finally, real confidence kicks in because the task actually feels manageable. The brain slowly learns that the task is totally survivable over these predictable stages. So how do we move through those stages? Through small wins. Building raw confidence doesn't happen in one dramatic, flawless speech. It's built piece by piece. Just saying one idea clearly, or standing still for a few seconds, making eye contact with just one friendly face, speaking with a steady breath, trying again after stumbling. These tiny, manageable successes tell the brain, hey, I can handle this. I am safe. And this leads to a monumental mindset shift. A lot of people think confidence means having absolutely zero fear. That's a total myth. Growing confidence actually sounds more like this. I can speak even if I'm not perfect. Nervousness just travels with me. Real confidence is simply the ability to stay functional while fear is present. It's the brain learning to calm its own protective alarms faster. Which brings us to our final step, Section 4, turning practice into identity. Now that we understand the psychology and the mechanics, how do we as adults facilitate this structural growth? Because just standing there commanding a kid to be brave definitely doesn't work. We have a huge active role in shaping this identity. We have the immense power to make speaking feel like a safe, learnable skill rather than a terrifying test. We need to notice when a child is cognitively overloaded instead of assuming they're just being lazy. We need to provide patience and specific encouragement, treat their mistakes as useful information, not failure, and lower uncertainty with familiar routines, because the unknown is what the brain hates more than anything. So the crucial point is this: children get better at public speaking when the experience teaches them, again and again, I can do this and I can recover. When we provide that safe, predictable environment, we allow the kid to gather enough real-world evidence to start believing a completely new story about themselves. It's not about forcing a confident label onto a terrified kid. It's about giving them the space to let practice turn into their identity. And that brings us to the end of this explainer. The next time you see a child stumble over their words, freeze under pressure, or finally push through a sentence with a shaky breath, you aren't just going to hear the words anymore. You'll see the incredibly brave, mechanical, and psychological process happening underneath. So, how will you help shape the new story a child believes about themselves the next time they step up to speak? Thanks for joining me on this deep dive, and I hope you take this wholesome, empathetic understanding with you.